Hi, I'm working on this table base for an upcoming issue of the magazine, and it's kind of a neat, simple base, 3 legs, 3 rails, but there's a lot going on within it. This angle joinery can look complicated, but if you break it down into simple steps, it's quite easy to tackle. The first thing you might notice about the legs is that they're 6-sided and they're also tapered, so the top is a lot skinnier than the bottom. To cut the joinery initially, you don't want the taper on it, and so I have 3 sample blanks here that have simply been beveled at the table saw. You tip the table saw blade to 30 degrees, start with a rectangle, and rip a corner, flip it over, and rip those corners till you have a nice hexagon. I found that a good way of sorting this out is to mark out where your tapers and your mortises are going to go right away, and also kind of decide which end of the leg goes up and which end goes down. So if you can see here, what I've done is I've basically used these arrows to mark these are inside faces, and then I've marked out the material that will be cut off when we start tapering this. And this just helps me keep everything oriented and in line as I'm cutting. If you look at the model, it looks like there's flare and there looks like a lot is going on, but the actual inside faces where these tenons go into the mortises of the legs are perpendicular to the ground. So all of these faces stay as we have them. It's just the outside 4 get cut away. So really, as long as you keep the insides left alone, you can cut as much or as little material off the outside and you'll be just fine. This one I actually have marked out. These ones are just dashed once I get going. I have my end lines for cutting my mortise, but this one I've actually marked out. So you can see those mortise locations, and I've also marked out the taper. So if you go from the end, this is my inside face, this edge is what I'm referencing those mortises off of, and this material will be cut away. So this mortise is a 1/4 inch from this edge, and this mortise is a 1/4 inch from that edge, and then you can also see how the taper will cut away material as we go. So this one gets tight, this one, because it's lower in the leg, the rail doesn't get as close to the edge. But as far as setting up your mortiser, it's a little different because it's not a 4-sided or even an 8-sided leg. So when it goes in, your sharp edge actually is what's going to come in contact with the fence. And it's just important to make sure as you're doing this that the piece isn't rotating on you. Make sure this bottom face sits flat on the mortising table. And when you set up your bit, of course, you don't have that hard edge either, so that's why I have these marked out. So you want to come a 1/4 inch off this edge, and once you get this set up, you can chop this mortise, flip this over, and you don't have to change your settings. So after a little bit of marking and thinking about it, it gets pretty straightforward. The other thing you want to make sure is don't overcut your mortise. That means don't cut it too deeply. If you get much past an inch, you end up with through mortises once you start tapering things. So. And now I'll just run it through one more time, just to clean out. Basically here I'm just cleaning out the bottoms. I want to make sure that it's a nice flat bottom mortise. So now that I have that mortise cut, I simply turn the piece end for end, and again it will line up for me right on the next mortise. And there were, oh, upside down. There we have the mortises.